For over 3,000 years, the Galactic Empire ruled the stars. Its banners flew above thousands of worlds. Its fleets controlled millions of ships. Entire civilizations obeyed its laws without question. Whenever the Empire declared war, the result was always the same: fear, panic, surrender. No one wanted to fight the Empire. No one believed they could win. The Empire's power was simply too great. Across the galaxy, parents told stories about Imperial fleets to frighten their children. Governments changed their policies whenever the Empire demanded it. Even powerful alien races lowered their heads when Imperial ambassadors entered a room. The Empire was not just a nation. It was a force of nature. Then humanity arrived. Humans were still considered a young species. Compared to races that had explored space for thousands of years, humanity was new, strange, unpredictable, and often difficult to understand. Many alien leaders viewed humans as ambitious but harmless. That belief would soon be tested. It began on an ordinary day. Across thousands of star systems, billions of people were going about their normal lives. Workers were inside factories. Pilots were traveling between planets. Merchants were selling goods. Families were eating dinner. Then suddenly, every communication network in the galaxy stopped. Every screen went black. Every transmission ended. Every signal disappeared. For a few seconds, complete silence spread across known space. People stared at their screens in confusion. Then a single image appeared everywhere. The symbol of the Galactic Empire. A golden star surrounded by silver rings. Instantly, fear spread. Whenever the Empire interrupted galactic communications, something important was happening. Something dangerous. Moments later, a figure appeared. The Emperor himself. His face filled billions of screens. Even from light years away, his presence felt overwhelming. He sat upon a massive throne made from dark metal. Behind him stood rows of armored guards. His eyes looked cold. His expression showed no emotion. The entire galaxy watched. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Then the Emperor began to speak. Citizens of the galaxy. His voice echoed through homes, stations, cities, and ships. For centuries, the Galactic Empire has maintained peace and order. He paused. Today, that peace has been threatened. Across countless worlds, nervous whispers began. Who had challenged the Empire? Which species had been foolish enough to provoke them? The Emperor continued. Humanity has violated Imperial law. The whispers stopped. Humans? Many aliens exchanged confused looks. Humanity was important, but they were not considered powerful enough to threaten the Empire. What had happened? The Emperor leaned forward. Humanity has ignored repeated Imperial warnings. They have expanded beyond approved territories. They have refused Imperial inspections. They have rejected lawful Imperial authority. His eyes narrowed. As a result, the Galactic Empire officially declares war on humanity. The words hit the galaxy like an explosion. War. The Empire had declared war. Against Earth. Against humans. Across thousands of worlds, people froze in shock. Many expected Earth to surrender immediately. That was what everyone else would do. No species in history had survived a direct conflict with the Empire. Some alien leaders even felt sorry for humanity. The war was already over. Or so they believed. The Emperor raised his hand. Earth has 72 standard hours to surrender unconditionally. His voice became colder. Failure to comply will result in military action. The screen went black. Silence followed. Then chaos exploded across the galaxy. News channels began reporting nonstop. Experts appeared on broadcasts. Political leaders called emergency meetings. Markets crashed. Trade routes closed. Citizens rushed to buy supplies. Everywhere, people prepared for another imperial conquest. The only place that seemed strangely calm was Earth. Alien reporters watched human news channels. They expected emergency announcements. They expected fear. Instead, they saw something unbelievable. A cooking show continued broadcasting. A football game remained on television. People were arguing online about movies. Traffic moved normally through major cities. Restaurants stayed open. Schools remained open. Factories continued operating. It made no sense. Had humans not heard the Emperor's message? Of course they had. Every human had seen it. Yet Earth looked almost normal. Inside the Capitol building of one human nation, government officials held a meeting. Alien observers monitored the discussion closely. They expected panic. Instead, one official calmly drank coffee. Another reviewed economic reports. A third discussed transportation projects. The conversation about the Empire lasted less than 10 minutes. Then they moved on to other topics. Alien intelligence officers could hardly believe what they were seeing. One officer replayed the recording 3 times. Humans were acting as if the greatest military power in galactic history had not just declared war. Meanwhile, inside the Imperial Palace, the Emperor watched the reports. His advisors looked confused. One of them stepped forward. "Your Majesty, human reactions appear unusual." The Emperor frowned. "Fear takes many forms." The advisor nodded nervously. "Perhaps." But even he sounded uncertain. Hours passed, then days. Humanity still showed no signs of surrender. No emergency broadcasts. No evacuation orders. No public panic. Nothing. Across the galaxy, rumors began spreading. Maybe humans had secret weapons. Maybe they had powerful allies. Maybe they had gone completely insane. No one knew. What nobody realized was that far beyond explored space, hidden in darkness, something massive was moving. Thousands of enormous ships traveled silently between distant stars. Their engines glowed faintly. Their weapons remained inactive. Their destinations were carefully chosen. Their orders were simple: wait, prepare, and remain unseen. Back on Earth, ordinary citizens continued their lives. But deep beneath mountains, oceans, and deserts, secure military facilities suddenly became active. Ancient defense systems powered on. Hidden shipyards opened. Encrypted messages traveled across impossible distances. Plans that had been prepared for decades quietly moved into action. Humanity was not ignoring the Empire. Humanity was preparing. The difference was important, very important. But the Empire did not understand that yet. And soon, they would learn a lesson the galaxy would never forget. 72 hours after the declaration, the Emperor stood once again inside his throne room. A smile appeared on his face. Humanity had not surrendered, exactly as he expected. Now came the punishment. He turned toward his military commanders. "Send the First Imperial Fleet." Thousands of officers immediately obeyed. Across Imperial space, enormous warships began moving. The attack had begun. And somewhere in the darkness beyond known space, human commanders received the news. They looked at each other. Then one of them smiled, because the Empire believed it was starting a war. In reality, it had just walked into a trap. The First Imperial Fleet was the pride of the Galactic Empire. For hundreds of years, it had crushed rebellions, conquered star systems, and destroyed entire civilizations. Whenever the First Fleet arrived, wars ended quickly, usually within days, sometimes within hours. Its commanders were famous throughout the galaxy. Its soldiers believed they were unstoppable. Now that powerful fleet was heading toward Earth. Thousands of warships jumped through hyperspace together. The sight was terrifying. Giant battleships stretched for kilometers. Heavy cruisers carried enough firepower to destroy moons. Carrier ships launched endless waves of fighters. The fleet looked like a moving wall of steel. As news spread, billions of aliens watched with fear. Many believed they were about to witness humanity's destruction. Some human allies secretly sent messages to Earth. They begged humans to surrender before it was too late. But no surrender came. Earth remained silent. Inside the flagship Imperial Glory, Grand Admiral Varix stood on the command deck. He was one of the Empire's most respected commanders. His victories were taught in military academies. His enemies feared his name. As he studied reports from Earth, he frowned. Something felt strange. "Any response from humanity?" he asked. A communications officer shook his head. "No surrender message, Admiral." Varix looked surprised. Most species surrendered long before an Imperial fleet arrived. Humans still had not. It almost felt like they were waiting. The thought annoyed him. No civilization could challenge the Empire and survive. Soon humanity would learn that lesson. After several days of travel, the first fleet finally entered the outer edge of the solar system. Immediately, scanners began collecting information. The officers expected to see defensive formations, military patrols, planetary shields, something. Instead, they found almost nothing. The outer regions of the solar system looked peaceful. Mining stations operated normally. Cargo ships followed their routes. Communication traffic continued. It looked like a normal day. The officers exchanged confused looks. Where are their defenses? One commander asked. Nobody had an answer. Varric smiled. Perhaps humanity had finally accepted reality. Perhaps they understood resistance was useless. As the fleet moved deeper into the system, confidence grew among the Imperial crews. Some officers were already discussing victory celebrations. Others debated how quickly Earth would surrender. Then the first strange report arrived. A sensor operator looked up suddenly. "Admiral, we're losing contact with Recon Ship 7. Varric frowned. "What happened?" "We don't know." The operator checked the data again. No distress signal. No damage report. It simply disappeared. The bridge became quiet. Ships did not simply disappear, especially Imperial ships. Varric ordered additional scans. Nothing appeared unusual. After several minutes, he dismissed the incident. Perhaps a communications malfunction. Such things happen occasionally. The fleet continued forward. Then another report arrived. This time, 2 scout ships vanished. Again, no warning. Again, no distress signal. The ships were simply gone. Now the bridge felt uneasy. Varric ordered an investigation. More sensor sweeps revealed nothing. No enemy vessels. No weapon signatures. No debris. Nothing. The missing ships had seemingly vanished into empty space. Hours later, things became worse. A cruiser suddenly stopped responding. Then another. Then another. The disappearances spread to the fleet like a disease. Panic slowly began replacing confidence. Officers rushed between workstations. Technicians checked systems repeatedly. Nobody could explain what was happening. For the first time, Grand Admiral Varric felt concern. He ordered the fleet to slow down. Perhaps humanity possessed hidden technology. Perhaps this was some kind of trap. But if it was a trap, where was the enemy? There were still no signs of human warships. No battle formations. No visible defenses. Nothing. Only silence. Then an officer shouted. Long-range contact detected. Every eye turned toward the main display. Varric stepped forward. "What is it?" The officer swallowed nervously. "I'm not sure, sir." The image appeared on the screen. At first, nobody understood what they were seeing. Tiny lights filled the display. Thousands of them. No, millions. The computer struggled to process the data. More contact appeared every second. The room became completely silent. One commander finally spoke. "Those can't be ships." The computer finished its calculations. Everyone stared. Nobody spoke. The number was impossible. Absolutely impossible. The contacts were ships. Human ships. And there were far more than anyone had imagined. The Empire's intelligence reports had estimated a few thousand human warships. The display showed tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. The numbers continued growing. The bridge became deathly quiet. Varric felt his stomach tighten. For the first time since his military career began, he experienced genuine uncertainty. Where had these ships come from? How had humanity hidden them? The answer arrived moments later. Encrypted transmissions suddenly flooded Imperial communication channels. One after another. Thousands of signals. The messages originated from distant star systems. Star systems the Empire did not recognize. Unknown colonies. Unknown shipyards. Unknown human territories. Humanity had been expanding in secret for decades, perhaps even centuries. While the galaxy watched Earth's public activities, humans had quietly built something enormous beyond explored space. Something nobody noticed. Something nobody expected. The realization hit the Imperial officers like a hammer. They had underestimated humanity. Badly. Very badly. Then another alert sounded. This one was different. Much different. A human transmission had arrived. It was directed specifically to Grand Admiral Varex. The bridge waited as the message played. A human officer appeared on the screen. His face remained calm. His voice remained steady. There was no fear, no panic, no desperation, only confidence. Grand Admiral Varex. The human looked directly into the camera. You have entered human defensive space. Several Imperial officers stared in disbelief. Defensive space? Nobody had ever heard of such a region. The human continued. We do not seek war. The statement surprised everyone. Then his expression hardened. But your fleet came here armed for conquest. Silence filled the bridge. The human leaned forward slightly. You still have time to leave. The transmission ended. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Finally, one commander laughed nervously. That's a bluff. But nobody joined him, because far beyond the Imperial fleet, countless lights were appearing. Thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. Human warships were emerging from the darkness. The first Imperial fleet was no longer advancing toward Earth. It was being surrounded. And for the first time in 3,000 years, the Galactic Empire realized something terrifying. They were not the strongest force in the battlefield. Not anymore. The bridge of the Imperial glory was completely silent. Grand Admiral Varex stared at the display before him. Every second, more human ships appeared. The numbers kept growing. It was impossible. The Empire had spent centuries collecting intelligence on every major civilization. They knew the military strength of every species. Or at least they thought they did. Yet somehow, humanity had hidden a fleet larger than anything the Empire had ever seen. The confidence that filled the bridge only hours earlier was gone. In its place stood uncertainty, fear, and questions nobody could answer. Run another scan, Varex ordered. The sensor teams obeyed immediately. Several minutes passed. Then the results appeared. The news was even worse. The ships surrounding them were not old cargo vessels converted into warships. They were modern, advanced, powerful. Many of them were larger than Imperial cruisers. Some were larger than battleships. One officer stared at the numbers in disbelief. How did they build all this? Nobody answered, because nobody knew. Far beyond the battlefield, inside the Imperial Palace, the Emperor received the first reports. His advisors stood around a giant holographic map. The Emperor listened quietly. When the briefing ended, he frowned. A mistake. The advisor looked confused. Your Majesty, the reports are wrong. The Emperor folded his hands. No species can hide a fleet of that size. But the evidence is incorrect. His voice became cold. Verify everything. The advisors quickly obeyed. But deep down, many already knew the truth. The reports were real. Humanity had hidden something enormous. Meanwhile, aboard the human flagship Resolute Dawn, Fleet Commander Sarah Mitchell watched the Imperial fleet. She remained calm. Her officers remained calm. No one celebrated. No one laughed. For decades, they had prepared for this exact moment. The Empire simply arrived sooner than expected. A young officer stepped forward. Commander, Imperial ships have stopped advancing. Sarah nodded. Expected. They seemed confused. A small smile appeared on her face. Good. The officer looked at the giant tactical map. Thousands of human vessels surrounded the Imperial formation, but this fleet represented only a fraction of humanity's strength. The Empire still had no idea how large humanity had become. That secret had been protected for generations. A secret that began long ago, long before the Empire declared war. Nearly 80 years earlier, humanity had learned an important lesson. At the time, Earth was still expanding into nearby systems. Human colonies were growing rapidly. Trade flourished. Technology advanced. Everything seemed peaceful. Then a small alien coalition attempted to invade a human mining world. The attack failed. Humans won easily. But the event changed everything. Because human leaders realized something. The galaxy was not safe. Someday a stronger enemy would arrive. Someday a threat might appear that humanity could not defeat. So they made a decision. Prepare. Not for years. Not for decades. For centuries, secret exploration programs were launched. Massive colony ships traveled beyond known space. New worlds were settled. Hidden shipyards were constructed inside asteroid belts. Entire industries moved into unexplored regions. Every generation continued the work. Every generation expanded farther. The project became humanity's greatest secret. Most aliens believed humanity occupied only a few hundred systems. The truth was far larger. Thousands of hidden colonies existed beyond known space. Billions of humans lived where no alien had ever traveled. And now that hidden civilization stood ready for war. Back in the present, the Imperial fleet remained trapped. The human blockade tightened. More ships arrived every hour. Varric studied the situation carefully. He hated what he saw. The tactical projections were terrible. Every simulation ended the same way. Defeat. His fleet was outnumbered, surrounded, and completely isolated. Yet surrender was unthinkable. He was an Imperial admiral. His duty was clear. "Prepare battle formations," he ordered. The bridge officers immediately obeyed. Throughout the fleet, alarms sounded. Weapons powered up. Shield generators activated. Fighter squadrons launched. The first Imperial fleet prepared for combat. Across the battlefield, human sensors detected the activity. Commander Mitchell watched the reports. Battle stations. Her officers moved quickly. No panic. No shouting. Everything followed carefully planned procedures. For years they had trained for this day. Now the training would be tested. Thousands of human ships formed defensive lines. Weapon systems came online. Fighter wings launched from hidden carriers. The darkness of space slowly filled with warships. The greatest battle in modern galactic history was about to begin. Then something unexpected happened. A communication request arrived. From Grand Admiral Varric. Commander Mitchell accepted it. Moments later, the Admiral appeared on the main screen. Both leaders studied each other. Neither spoke immediately. Finally, Varric broke the silence. "You hid your strength well." Mitchell nodded. "So did you." The Admiral glanced toward the growing human fleet. "Why? Why what? Why build all this?" The human commander looked thoughtful. Then she answered, "Because history teaches lessons." Varric frowned. "What lesson?" Her eyes hardened. "That peace never lasts forever." Silence followed. The Admiral understood. Humanity had spent generations preparing for a war they hoped would never happen. The Empire had mistaken preparation for weakness. A dangerous mistake. Mitchell spoke again. "Leave the solar system." Varric shook his head. "I cannot." Then this battle becomes unavoidable. The transmission ended. For several moments, both fleets remained motionless. Neither side fired. Neither side moved. The galaxy watched nervously. Billions followed live broadcasts. Experts argued endlessly. Some predicted an Imperial victory. Others believed humanity would win. Nobody truly knew. Then a single Imperial destroyer fired. Its weapons flashed across space. The first shot of the war. For one brief second, the galaxy held its breath. The energy blast struck a human defensive ship. Bright light exploded across the battlefield. The war had begun, and the Empire was about to discover another terrifying secret. Because the human ship did not explode. It did not even slow down. Its shields absorbed the attack completely. Across the battlefield, thousands of human weapons activated simultaneously. The darkness of space suddenly glowed with light. Grand Admiral Varric watched the readings appear. His eyes widened. For the first time in his life, genuine fear entered his mind. The Empire had not started a war with a young civilization. It had started a war with something far more dangerous. A civilization that had been preparing for this moment for generations. And now the galaxy would witness what humanity had been building in secret. The first exchange of fire changed the galaxy forever. Imperial destroyers fired again and again. Their weapons struck the front line of the human fleet. Bright explosions filled space. But the human ships did not break formation. Their shields absorbed the attacks. Their engines kept burning. Their lines moved forward as if nothing had happened. Then the human fleet answered. Thousands of blue-white beams crossed the darkness at once. The nearest Imperial destroyer vanished in a flash of light. A second ship lost power and drifted away. A third broke apart before its crew could send a distress signal. Grand Admiral Verex watched the reports appear across his tactical screen. Losses were climbing every second. He had faced many enemies during his career, but he had never seen weapons strike with such speed and precision. "Pull the outer wings back," he ordered. "Tighten the formation." Imperial ships tried to regroup, but the human fleet moved with perfect coordination. Smaller human vessels darted between larger warships, cutting communication lines and targeting engines instead of firing wildly. Within 20 minutes, the first Imperial fleet had lost more ships than it usually lost in an entire campaign. Far away on the capital world of the Empire, the Emperor finally received the full battle feed. For several minutes, he said nothing. The holographic display showed burning Imperial ships surrounded by human formations that continued advancing steadily. One advisor spoke carefully. "Your Majesty, we should consider opening negotiations." The Emperor's eyes hardened. "No, but the First Fleet will hold." His voice became colder. "Humanity has hidden its strength. That changes nothing. The Empire is eternal." Another advisor stepped forward. "Perhaps we underestimated them." The Emperor rose from his throne. "Underestimated?" He looked around the room. "A young species has won a few early engagements. That is all." He pointed at the galactic map. "Mobilize the reserve fleets. Recall every battle group within 5 sectors. I want a force large enough to erase humanity from history." The advisors obeyed, but many exchanged worried glances as they left. Outside the palace, news of the battle spread through the Empire. For the first time in centuries, citizens saw images of Imperial ships retreating. Shock turned into whispers. Whispers turned into questions. Questions turned into fear. A different reaction. While the Empire rushed toward panic, humanity reacted very differently. On Earth, factories increased production. Shipyards switched to wartime schedules. Civil defense networks activated quietly. There were no riots, no mass evacuations, no collapse of public order. People simply went to work. In one coastal city, a news reporter interviewed workers leaving a shipyard. "Are you afraid of the Empire?" she asked. An older engineer shrugged. "We prepared for this." "For war with the Galactic Empire?" The engineer smiled faintly. "For whatever came." That simple answer spread across human networks and reached millions of viewers. The real problem, back in the solar system, Grand Admiral Verex studied the battlefield with growing concern. The human fleet was not trying to destroy his forces quickly. It was controlling the battle. Human ships blocked every escape route. Electronic attacks disrupted Imperial sensors. Supply vessels vanished whenever they tried to move. Verex suddenly understood the truth. Humanity did not fear the Empire because humanity expected the Empire to come. This battlefield had been prepared long before the declaration of war. He opened a direct channel to the Imperial Palace. "Your Majesty, we must reconsider our strategy." The Emperor's face appeared on the screen. "Explain." "The humans are fighting a defensive war they planned for years. Additional fleets will enter the same trap unless we gather intelligence first." The Emperor's expression darkened. "You are asking permission to retreat." Verex hesitated only a moment. "I am asking permission to preserve the fleet." The answer came immediately. "Denied." "Your Majesty, hold your position until reinforcements arrive." The transmission ended. Verex stared at the blank screen. He had served the Empire for 40 years. He had obeyed every order without question. But now he realized something terrible. The Emperor was fighting his pride, not the war. The galaxy begins to move. Across nearby sectors, other species watched carefully. Many had suffered under Imperial rule for generations. They had never dared to resist because resistance seemed hopeless. Now they saw the impossible. Humanity was holding the Empire back. Secret messages began moving between alien governments. Old enemies spoke to each other for the first time in decades. Hidden resistance groups became active. Border worlds started delaying Imperial orders. The cracks in Imperial authority were spreading faster than anyone expected. The Emperor's greatest mistake, 3 days after the first battle, the emperor made the decision that would change the war. Instead of opening negotiations, he announced a full imperial mobilization. Every reserve fleet was ordered toward human space. Every governor was commanded to provide ships, soldiers, and supplies. The announcement was meant to show strength. Instead, it revealed desperation. Worlds that feared the empire for centuries suddenly saw that the emperor was afraid, and fear, once visible, spreads quickly. As the order reached the front lines, Grand Admiral Verex received one final report from his intelligence officers. New human fleets were emerging from unexplored regions. Not one fleet, not 10 fleets, dozens. Verex closed his eyes for a moment. The emperor had just sent the entire empire into a war against an enemy whose true size was still unknown. That was his greatest mistake. And somewhere beyond the edge of explored space, even larger human forces were already moving toward the front. The galaxy simply had not seen them yet. The war was no longer going the way the emperor had planned. Every day brought more bad news. More fleets lost. More systems refusing imperial orders. More species questioning imperial authority. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Empire had stood like an unbreakable wall. Now cracks were appearing everywhere, and those cracks were growing. Inside the Imperial Palace, advisors rushed through hallways carrying reports. Military commanders argued during emergency meetings. Government officials demanded answers. Nobody seemed to know how to stop the disaster. Meanwhile, humanity continued advancing. Slowly, carefully, patiently. They were not rushing to conquer worlds. They were not seeking revenge. Instead, human fleets focused on one goal, ending the war. But before that could happen, they needed answers. Because something about the Empire did not make sense. Human intelligence officers had spent years studying imperial history. The more they learned, the stranger became. The Empire claimed to have ruled peacefully for thousands of years. Yet entire civilizations had vanished from historical records. Advanced species had disappeared without explanation. Star systems appeared abandoned. Ancient data archives contained missing sections. It was as if someone had erased parts of galactic history. Commander Sarah Mitchell wanted the truth, and she finally had a chance to find it. After several weeks of fighting, human forces captured an important Imperial data station near the edge of Imperial territory. The station was heavily defended, but once it fell, human intelligence teams quickly entered its archives. What they discovered shocked them. Deep inside protected databases, hidden behind multiple security systems, were records never meant to be seen. Records dating back thousands of years. Sarah personally reviewed the files. At first, she thought there had been a mistake. Then she realized the terrible truth. The Empire had built its power on lies. Huge lies. Ancient reports revealed that many civilizations had once rivaled the Empire. Some were more advanced. Some were stronger. Some possessed technologies beyond anything currently known. Yet none of them existed anymore. Not because they had collapsed naturally. Not because of disasters. The Empire had destroyed them. Systematically. Deliberately. Whenever a civilization became powerful enough to threaten imperial control, the Empire attacked first. Entire species disappeared. Their worlds were burned. Their histories erased. Their technologies seized. Then imperial historians rewrote the records. The victims became forgotten. The Empire became stronger. Again and again. For centuries. Sarah sat quietly as she read the final report. The numbers were horrifying. Hundreds of civilizations had been erased. Perhaps more. The galaxy had never known. Because the Empire controlled the history books. One intelligence officer looked at her. What do we do now? Sarah took a deep breath. We tell the truth. Within hours, the evidence was transmitted across the galaxy. Every major government received copies. Every news network received copies. Every independent archive received copies. The secret could no longer be hidden. The reaction was immediate. Shock spread across known space. Then anger followed. Many species discovered that their ancient allies had been erased by the Empire. Others learned that entire chapters of their own history had been altered. Old wounds reopened. Old questions returned. and trust in the empire collapsed. World after world began declaring independence. Governors resigned. Military commanders refused orders. Some imperial fleets even surrendered without a fight. The emperor watched everything happen from his palace. His face remained calm, but inside, rage burned. 3,000 years of control were slipping away, not because humanity was stronger, not because humanity had bigger fleets, but because humanity had revealed the truth. And truth was more dangerous than any weapon. An advisor entered cautiously. "Your Majesty." The emperor did not look up. "What now?" "The seventh sector has declared independence." The emperor remained silent. The advisor swallowed. "And the 12th sector?" Still silence. "The 21st sector has joined them." The emperor slowly stood. The room became very quiet. "Leave." The advisor immediately obeyed. Moments later, the emperor was alone. He walked toward a hidden section of the palace, a section almost nobody knew existed. The door opened after genetic scan, then another door, then another. Finally, he entered a chamber buried deep beneath the palace. At the center stood a massive holographic display, ancient, powerful, and extremely dangerous. The emperor stared at it. For centuries, every ruler of the empire had known about this secret, a final weapon, a weapon never intended to be used. Its origins were older than the empire itself, older than recorded history. The machine was connected to ancient technology hidden near the galactic core, technology built by a civilization that existed long before any current species reached the stars. Its power was unimaginable. One activation could destroy thousands of systems, entire fleets, entire civilizations. The emperor stared at the controls. His empire was collapsing. His enemies were growing stronger. His authority was disappearing. There was still one way to win. A terrible way, but a way. Far away, human intelligence networks suddenly detected unusual activity. Encrypted imperial communications increased dramatically. Hidden facilities became active. Ancient systems began transmitting signals toward the galactic core. Analysts studied the data. The results frightened them. Sarah received the report aboard the Resolute Dawn. She read it twice, then a third time. The conclusion remained the same. The Empire was preparing something enormous, something far beyond normal warfare, something capable of changing the entire galaxy. For the first time since the war began, genuine concern appeared on her face. An officer looked at her nervously. "What is it?" Sarah slowly lowered the report. "The Emperor isn't trying to save the Empire anymore." The room fell silent. "What does that mean?" She looked toward the stars. "It means he's becoming desperate." At that exact moment, deep beneath the Imperial Palace, the Emperor placed his hand on the ancient control system. Ancient lights slowly activated. Machines that had slept for thousands of years began waking up. Across the galaxy, hidden sensors detected enormous energy spikes near the galactic core. Scientists stared at their instruments in horror. The readings were impossible, absolutely impossible, yet they were real. The ancient weapon was coming online, and if humanity could not stop it in time, billions would die. The final stage of the war had begun. The galaxy stood on the edge of disaster. Across thousands of star systems, scientists watched their sensors with fear. The readings coming from the galactic core were unlike anything ever recorded. Ancient energy sources were activating. Massive power levels continued rising every hour. Nobody knew exactly what would happen when the weapon reached full power, but everyone agreed on one thing: nothing good. Panic spread quickly. Governments declared emergencies. Spaceports became crowded. Families tried to leave major worlds. News channels broadcast nonstop updates. Everywhere people asked the same question: could humanity stop it? Or was the galaxy about to witness the greatest catastrophe in history? Aboard the human flagship Resolute Dawn, Commander Sarah Mitchell studied the latest intelligence reports. The situation was getting worse. The Emperor's weapon was charging faster than expected. Human analysts estimated they had less than 6 days remaining. After that, nobody could predict the outcome. Sarah looked around the command room. Her officers were tired. Many had been awake for nearly 2 days. But nobody complained. Nobody suggested retreat. Everyone understood what was at stake. The fleet status? Sarah asked. An officer stepped forward. All strike groups are moving toward the galactic core. Allied fleets still arriving. Sarah nodded. For the first time in galactic history, dozens of species were fighting together. Old enemies stood side by side. Former rivals shared intelligence. Worlds that once distrusted each other now worked as one. The Emperor had spent centuries dividing the galaxy. Now his actions had united it. And that might become his final mistake. Far away, inside the Imperial Palace, the Emperor watched the weapons progress. Ancient machines hummed beneath the palace. Massive energy streams flowed through hidden networks. The weapon was almost ready. An advisor entered cautiously. He looked terrified. Your Majesty. The Emperor did not turn around. What is it? The outer defense lines have fallen. Silence. The human fleets continue advancing. Still silence. The advisor swallowed. They are less than 3 days from the galactic core. The Emperor slowly smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Then they are too late. The advisor left without another word. Deep inside, even he no longer believed victory was possible. The Emperor wasn't trying to save the Empire anymore. He simply wanted to make sure nobody else could rule it. 3 days later, the largest fleet ever assembled entered the galactic core region. The sight was breathtaking. Thousands of stars filled the darkness. Nebulas glowed in brilliant colors. Ancient structures drifted between worlds. And waiting ahead stood the final Imperial Defense Fleet. Millions of warships. Every remaining loyal vessel. Every remaining loyal soldier. The Emperor had gathered everything for one last battle. Human commanders studied the enemy formation. The numbers were enormous. Even now, the Empire remained powerful. One officer looked nervous. That's a lot of ships. Sarah looked at the tactical display. Then she smiled slightly. So are ours. Behind the human fleet stretched countless vessels. Human ships, alien ships, independent defense groups, former imperial worlds. The entire galaxy had come, not because they were ordered to, because they chose to. For the first time, the Empire stood alone. The battle began. Space erupted into light. Weapons fired across millions of kilometers. Fighters rushed between giant warships. Explosions illuminated the darkness. Entire formations collided. For hours, the outcome remained uncertain. Both sides suffered losses. Both sides fought with everything they had. The Imperial fleet refused to surrender. The Allied fleets refused to stop. Again and again, battle lines shifted. Again and again, commanders adjusted their strategies. But slowly, steadily, the Empire began losing ground. Not because its soldiers lacked courage. Not because its ships were weak. Because it was fighting alone. And the galaxy had finally learned the strength of unity. While the battle raged, a smaller human task force pushed toward the ancient weapon itself. Their mission was simple. Reach the control center. Shut it down, no matter the cost. The journey was dangerous. Ancient defense systems protected the structure. Automated weapons attacked from every direction. Several ships were destroyed. Others suffered heavy damage. Yet they continued forward. Finally, they reached the central control station, a gigantic structure hidden near the galactic core. Ancient metal covered its surface. Strange symbols glowed across massive walls. Technology older than recorded history surrounded them. Human engineers quickly began studying the systems. The news was not good. The weapon had already completed most of its activation sequence. Only minutes remained. An engineer looked at Sarah. We can't shut it down normally. Options. The engineer hesitated. There is one possibility. What is it? We overload the control matrix. Sarah frowned. Will it work? The engineer answered honestly. We don't know. Back in the palace, warning alarms suddenly appeared. The Emperor stared at them. Human forces had reached the weapon. Impossible. They should not have arrived so quickly. For the first time since the war began, uncertainty entered his mind. Then another warning appeared. Control systems were being disrupted. The weapon stability was falling. The Emperor rushed toward the main console. No. Ancient machinery shook violently. Energy surged through the chamber. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. Outside, near the galactic core, human engineers executed their final plan. Power levels spiked. Ancient circuits overloaded. For several terrifying seconds, nobody knew what would happen. Then everything went dark. The weapon shut down. Completely. Across the galaxy, sensor networks confirmed the impossible. The ancient superweapon was dead. The threat was over. 1 day later, the remaining Imperial fleets surrendered. The war had ended. The Empire had fallen. But humanity surprised everyone once again. They did not take the Imperial throne. They did not create a new empire. They did not demand control of the galaxy. Instead, they helped build a council where every species had a voice. Every world had representation. Every civilization had rights. Months later, a reporter asked Sarah Mitchell a question. The Empire declared war on humanity. Why didn't humanity panic? Sarah smiled. Because we spent generations preparing for difficult days. The reporter nodded. And because humanity was stronger? Sarah looked toward the stars. No. Then why? Her answer became famous across the galaxy. Because courage isn't the absence of danger. She smiled. It's continuing forward even when danger arrives. The Empire had expected fear. It had expected surrender. It had expected panic. Instead, it found humanity. And humanity didn't even flinch.